One of the best ways to improve as a photographer is to focus on how you arrange the elements within the frame. In this lesson, we take a look at 10 rules of composition that will take you to the next level. Every good photograph should contain one element that stands out above everything else, and that element is known as the focal point. It may be larger, brighter, closer, or simply more unique. But whatever the reason, it should let the viewer know that this is the most important part of the picture. This engagement photo consists of several elements: the background, the vehicle, and the couple. But the couple is the focal point. First, they are people, and people, especially faces, usually take precedence. And second, they are in the foreground and in sharp focus. If you look at the bus in the midground, you will notice that it is slightly blurry due to its shallow depth of field. It is sharp enough to let you know what it is, but the blur implies it's not the most crucial element in the frame. This is a photo of the young couple, and the composition works to prove it. This game photo brings the viewer into the huddle, and although there are many faces presented here, one person stands out: the coach. This man shines in a variety of ways. For example, his white shirt contrasts with the black uniforms of the players. And unlike the players, he is shown in profile. Additionally, all eyes in the photo are looking directly at him. This makes the coach unique in the image and shows his powerful position on the team. Finally, the players' bodies surround and frame the coach, forcing our eyes in his direction. This image from a high school assembly is full of faces, but one stands out above all the others. And once again, we see that the element's placement, size, clarity, and uniqueness make it the focal point. Here, the cheerleader in the bottom right is closer to us and larger than everyone else in the frame. She is also sharply focused, while the others are slightly soft. Finally, the fact that she has her arms in a unique position, framing her face, makes her stand out. This is a photo about school spirit, and compositionally, this cheerleader owns it. Identifying the focal point lets you strategically place this vital element in the frame for maximum effect. And one of the most important tools to accomplish this is the rule of thirds. The best way to understand this rule is to see it in action. This documentary photo of the interior of a shuttered steel mill tells a story. At one time, this facility was one of the most important mills in the country. But the decline of the U.S. steel industry in the early 1980s forced it to close. The photo shows a now defunct crane hook in an empty bay that once pulsed with activity. Ironically, the crane hook that moved the machinery out now awaits its turn to be disassembled and removed itself. We can see that the hook is the focal point of the image, but don't imagine its placement is random. It is placed according to the rule of thirds. Imagine the frame is divided into 3 equal columns and 3 equal rows. Think of it like a tic-tac-toe frame resting on the image. Where the lines intersect are the power zones, and this is where you should place your focal point. The grid lines are the markers where the horizon lines or vertical elements should appear. In this photo, you can see that, according to the rule of thirds, the hook rests in the bottom right power zone. This power zone creates a much more appealing image. Placing the focal point in the center of the frame is usually a bad idea. Also, notice that the horizon line rests on the upper third line. The photographer emphasizes the background by placing the focal point low and the horizon line high. This depth allows us to sense the emptiness the image attempts to convey. Here, effective composition helps the photographer tell the story. And storytelling is really what photos are about. In this nature photo, a small sanderling probes the sand for lunch. The bird is the obvious focal point, and its reflection forms a linear shape on the left side of the composition. When the rule of thirds grid is applied, we see that the bird resides near the upper left power zone. and the linear shape of the bird and its reflection rest on the vertical grid line. This fantasy portrait features a beautiful mermaid reclining on the beach. She fills the frame, but the rule of thirds still applies. Notice that the horizon line is placed on the lower third line. This placement emphasizes the dramatic sky. The photographer might have placed the horizon line on the upper third line if the sky was less beautiful. This would feature more of the reflection in the foreground. Both choices are appropriate, and it's just one of the tough decisions the photographer has to make. Also, notice that the mermaid's face resides in the lower left side power zone. This placement is not precise, but it is close, and that's enough to give the photo a compositional boost. Use the rule of thirds as a guideline and not a restraint. As a photographer, you can draw attention to the most crucial elements in the photograph by using frames. These can be structural elements, such as windows, fences, or doors, or natural elements, such as rocks, flowers, or trees. Placing the focal point within these frames draws the viewer's eye and directs the focus of the image. In this photo of a Myrtle Beach hotel deconstruction site, it was impossible for me to move past the chain link barrier fence, and shooting through the fence was difficult, so the solution was to incorporate the fence into the composition and use it as a framing element. In this photo of insane traffic in Phnom Penh, the biggest city in Cambodia, the outline of the windshield and the driver's face and shoulder help capture the sense of claustrophobia in the scene. In this fashion photo, the model is framed by the trunks of two massive cypress trees in a low-country swamp. The trees function as an effective framing element and serve as a prop for the model's pose. Photos typically fall into one of two formats. They are either horizontal or vertical. Horizontal images are used for landscapes, and verticals are for portraits, but it's not that simple. The format the photographer chooses can have a dramatic impact on the image and the story it tells. Choosing the best image format can be challenging, and the safe bet is to explore each subject using both. These two photos come from the Tul Seng Genocide Museum in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. This former secondary school was used by the Khmer Rouge as a security prison during their occupation, and this classroom served as a prison cell during that time. The image on the left is horizontal, while the image on the right is vertical. Both photos help tell the tragic story of what happened here. However, each seems to share a different aspect of this human tragedy. In the horizontal image, the window functions as the focal point. The narrow slits remind the viewer of prison bars, and the shafts of light filtering through the openings hint at the freedom beyond these walls. The vertical image focuses more on the hard, cold floor with checkerboard tiles. The geometric pattern seems oddly out of place in a prison cell. By making the unyielding floor more the focal point, this shot seems to tell the story of the physical suffering that went on here. This queen angelfish was photographed 90 feet down on the deck of the USS Vermilion off the coast of South Carolina. Angelfish are pretty shy and scurry away when a diver approaches. This makes them hard to photograph. However, they are also very curious, and if you wait, they will return. This one was the same. After spotting the animal, I slowly approached and dropped to the deck. The fish immediately ducked into a hole, but it wasn't long before it returned. The resulting shots are quite distinct, and the different formats produce very different versions of the same fish. The vertical image on the left imparts a cartoony character sense of the animal, while the horizontal image on the right appears more documentary in its form. Each format lends itself to a different aspect of the creature's anatomy. Consequently, the resulting images are very different. Sand ripples dominate this pair of images, which are very much the same. However, sometimes the end use of the image dictates the preferred format. If the image was intended for display on a screen, the photographer might choose the horizontal format. The vertical format might be better if the image was to hang on a wall. Considering that the purpose of a photo is only sometimes known at the time it is created, having the option of both a horizontal and a vertical version of the image is a benefit. And to make things just a little more confusing, there is a third format option. Most people refer to this format as canted, but you may also hear the term Dutch angle. However, the most fun name is the funky tilt. No matter how you say it, these images feature a tilted horizon line. When used appropriately, this format can lend an image a sense of energy. This child's portrait utilizes a slightly canted angle, and in this case, the format suits the subject and gives the viewer the sense that this is a moment frozen in time. The boy appears more dynamic and alive in this photo. It feels like he is about to scurry away. Hot car, hip outfit, and relaxed pose. This senior portrait is all about attitude, and the heavily canted angle gives the image an edgy dynamic. When you want to be cool, cant the angle. When the photo is all about fun and excitement, consider how a slight tilt can help convey the message. Let the subject's energy determine the wrong or the right time to use a funky tilt. Every element in a photograph speaks to the viewer, so it is crucial to eliminate anything that might take away from the message the photographer hopes to convey. As a photographer, you must look beyond the focal point and consider the entire image. Strive to keep the composition clean and simple by eliminating distractions. This is a photo of a common and unremarkable creature known as a toadfish. It is not very large and regarded as quite ugly by most. However, by filling the frame with just the face, the fish becomes much more. Focusing on only the most crucial elements, like the eyes and mouth, is the key to producing a dramatic photo of this potentially mundane subject. This photo utilizes a shallow depth of field to exclude the background elements that might detract from the athlete. Depth of field refers to the zone of sharp focus in an image. That zone can be shallow or deep. It all depends on the lens choice and aperture setting. In this instance, a 200mm or telephoto lens, coupled with a wide aperture like f2.8, produced an extremely shallow range of focus. This photo, taken at the base of the Nam Kulen Falls, located near the ancient temple complex of Angkor Wat, features a single bather sitting contemplatively on a rock. The photo implies a sense of serenity and meditation. However, this site is a popular attraction in the area, and unbeknownst to the viewer, there were dozens of tourists to the left and to the right of the man. Only by carefully framing those individuals out of the composition can this image retain a sense of peace. One of the best ways to improve a photograph is to move in close. Fill the frame with the very best parts of the image. This works particularly well with faces or highly complex subjects. This tight close-up of a child's face reveals the boy's youthful features and amplifies the cuteness factor tenfold. Faces are incredibly important to photographers because they are natural focal points. By moving in close and focusing on the face alone, the photo gains a sense of power. Pelicans are a relatively mundane sight, common to almost everyone who visits the beach. However, focusing the viewer's attention on the bird's powerful eye and revealing the strange geometry of the head and beak give the creature an unworldly appearance. Moving in close allows the viewer to experience something they know in a fresh and exciting way. This photo displays the sacrifice and pain of competition, and the best way to reveal this drama is to move in close. At a distance, the story of a trainer tending to an injured player is still apparent, but it's not until the viewer sees the anguish on the young man's face that the power of the image is revealed. Lines, patterns, and curves are aesthetically pleasing elements, but they can also give the image a sense of depth or direction. They can add impact to an otherwise mundane subject. Look for them and include them in your composition if possible. The base of a massive cypress tree serves as the focal point for this dramatic image. By filling the frame with the alternating lines of bark and shadow, the image takes on an almost alien appearance. However, the incorporation of a small thread of leafy vine is a clue to understand what is actually depicted here. The image is in some ways a riddle. A carefully parked row of scooters serves as a study in symmetry. The uniformity of the tires, fenders, lights, and handles is broken only by the variations in color. This image is all about the meticulous crop and the beautiful balance of the composition. A snail shell is a geometric masterpiece admired and emulated by artists and architects around the world. In this image, the black background and glossy sheen highlight the perfect spiral of this natural wonder. Photographs may imply a sense of motion, and this is often expressed by the focal point within the frame. There must be enough space within the composition for any action to be completed. Otherwise, the moving subject might appear to fall out of the image. This can create a sense of unease in the viewer and diminish the photograph's impact. In this photo, the sandpiper rushes the incoming surf looking for a meal. By placing this feathery focal point on the right side of the frame, it gives the bird the room it needs to move through the image. It causes the composition to feel natural and open. The tight crop of this image reveals significant detail about the surfer, but the tightness doesn't feel constraining. The surfer shows the viewer with his eyes and the angle of his face where he is heading next. This opens the composition up and enables the viewer to sense that the athlete is not about to surf out of the frame. In this image from a polar plunge charity event, a huge crowd of people plunge into the frigid sea. Utilizing a panoramic format and keeping an area of empty space on the left side of the frame reveals the crowd's destination and helps tell the story. Mergers are distracting background elements that tend to blend with the focal point and ruin the image. They happen when a photographer focuses only on the subject and ignores the background elements. The key to avoiding this problem is vigilance. Take the time necessary to see the entire composition as you create it. However, when managed properly, mergers can be useful. They can be used to trick the eye by manipulating the perspective, or they can be used to incorporate a bit of whimsy into the composition. In this friendly portrait, a wall-mounted flag becomes an unwanted antenna sticking out of the young lady's head. The merger could easily have been avoided by moving the group a few feet to the left or the right. Photographers must pay attention to the surroundings as well as the people in the images they create. Mergers can also be fun. Old school special effects often relied on forced perspective to fool an audience. By manipulating the distance between and the positioning of the elements in an image, you can create your own visual magic. Here, the merger is a little more intentional. Placing the model in just the right spot allows the photographer to take advantage of some conveniently placed wall art. Finally, we reach the 10th rule. Feel free to break the rules. We started this lecture with the idea that photographs tell stories. Sometimes the best way to do that is to break convention. The crucial point is that you, as a photographer, understand how, and more importantly, why, you are doing so. This dog breaks the rule of thirds by filling the center of the frame. However, the key to understanding the compositional choice is the water that surrounds him. While on a trip to Southeast Asia, I stopped with a group of friends to have lunch. We dined on a small deck over the river. While we ate, this stray swam over to us looking for a handout and sat shoulder deep in the water. We shared our scraps and the dog moved on to the next group of people. I watched in horror as these people filled a plastic bag with leftovers and tied it shut before offering it to the dog. I imagined the hungry animal gulping down shreds of plastic as he tried to devour the food. But, to my great surprise, the animal took the package in its teeth and swam back across the small river and dropped it on the far bank. Just then, a female dog and 3 pups emerged from the brush. The male dog delicately picked at the knot and managed to open the bag. All of the animals took turns eating from the bag before disappearing back into the trees. I will always remember this event, and placing the animal in the center of the water-filled image captures the true essence of the story. In this nature photo, a dolphin's fluke escapes from the edge of the frame. The slight blur provides a sense of motion, and the unbalanced placement of the tail demonstrates the brevity of the moment. This underwater photo breaks all the rules, but I love it. There's no focal point, and every element is in perfect balance. The uniformity of the image, coupled with the filtered blue light, creates a truly powerful photograph. The solitude is stifling and leaves the viewer with a sense of emptiness. This is an awesome image of oppressive conformity. A thorough understanding of composition can improve your photography in a significant way. Let's take a moment to review what we have learned. When it comes to photographic composition, you should 1. Find the focal point. 2. Follow the rule of thirds. 3. Find the frames. 4. Change the format. 5. Keep it simple. 6. Move in close. 7. Look for lines, patterns, and curves. 8. Leave room for action. 9. Manage the mergers. And 10. Break the rules. I hope this lesson serves you well, but remember, knowledge without application is meaningless. So get out there and put these rules to the test.